Danny, as an Ethereum miner, are you protesting Ethereum 2.0 or what the EIP, the new protocol that they're launching? Taking to the streets.
I've caught a lot of news on both sides of that. I use like a plug and play approach to mining on NiceHash, and so I'm kind of removed from the technical details of what I'm actually mining or having to manage it. But to comment on the feud that's happening, I think miners do have a reason to be mad because essentially they're making changes that are going to cut mining profits without, and they're just sort of guessing that fees might go down, but that's not really a given. And
Right.
a lot of people think that the fees are just going to stay the same and tokens are just going to be burned instead of being passed out to miners. And yeah, that's kind of like a snub to miners, even though those miners are being phased out anyway over the next year and a half or so. But yeah, miners are mad.
But that's like, maybe for my brain to understand, that's like oil manufacturers being upset that car manufacturers are making cars more efficient.
It's a little bit more tightly knit than that, because I'm trying to think of a good analogy.
What's the amount of energy, right, that takes to mine? Is that why they're getting phased out?
I think it comes down to scaling as well. But yeah, it's a combination of factors as to why they're moving to proof of stake versus proof of work. But yeah, to go back to an analogy, yeah, that's kind of hard because it's not necessarily the oil producers being mad that cars are more efficient. It's like the guarantee that the cars are going to be more efficient isn't even proven yet, but they're asking the oil producers to take less money anyway. They're just like, hey, we're going to pay you half the amount so that, I don't even know. That analogy doesn't really work, but
if they don't do that, won't everybody shift away from Ethereum anyway? So just to remain relevant, do they need
I mean, I think it's a good question. I think maybe a possible analogy is, if you think of Ethereum as like an oil maker, it's the miners as the oil workers. It would be like the oil company deciding to suddenly go into solar power. And so all of these oil workers are now out of jobs because what they were doing is effectively obsolete now. That's kind of what's happening with Ethereum with the switch, and not exactly right now, but with the switch to proof of stake is, the miners become sort of obsolete. It's a little bit different than what's going on now, so it's still not a great analogy.
Okay.
But what was the second part of the question?
Sorry, guys. Can you guys, for me and Tone, specifically me, can you guys explain the difference between staking?
Asking Jesus.
I know he wanted to ask it. I saw it in his eyes, and he just didn't speak up, so I had to do it.
Yeah.
So the difference between proof of work and
proof of stake and proof of work. What does that mean?
So proof of work, I see you guys are maybe more familiar with. It's the concept that in order to sign new transactions and validate them on the blockchain, you have a network of lots of computers that are all trying to solve the equation that'll add those transactions to the blockchain. And whoever comes up with it first gets to validate those transactions and gets rewarded in the cryptocurrency. And I lost my train of thought.
Maybe it's hundreds or thousands of computers at the same time trying to solve one equation or one problem.
Yeah, and it's basically up to chance whether you're the first one to get it, and that essentially provides the security for the network. I think that's probably as simple as we can go into that. So basically you have to run a program, it takes a lot of energy, and you might get paid out. And it's typically can be fairly profitable. So for proof of stake, you can essentially consider it, to boil it way down, is every coin that you earn in a proof of stake system is essentially a lottery ticket. In the more tickets you have, the more chances you get called on to validate the next set of transactions. And so every certain number of minutes, a new lottery ticket is pulled. If it's your number, you do the work to validate the transactions, and then you get rewarded. And so that's why it's called proof of stake, because you have a stake in the cryptocurrency actually running well. And so, yeah, it's essentially just a lottery system. And there's ways to make it more secure and scalable than the typical proof of work system. But it's kind of a simple way to put it, or hopefully simple way to put it.
It makes sense for the most part. I don't know if this is going to derail what we're talking about. So like with the proof of work, so Alex is the first to finish. He gets a big reward for completing or validating the transaction. He gets the one that follows through. Let's say I was like a millisecond behind him. Am I just out, or is it like how does that, I guess, because I know it's an entire network, and so I don't know that my question is valid. But like if we're all working towards the same end, and I'm right, because we're talking milliseconds here, I'm right behind him. He gets the full benefit, I get nothing.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if different consensus algorithms require multiple people to come to the same answer. I would think that might be beneficial for the network as a whole, but I can't speak.
I think they do
specifically to that. That would make sense to me, but I've always heard the mining rewards. You know, one person gets the whole earnings, the whole winnings, whoever gets there first. So,
and it varies by network too on how they manage the payouts for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, basically the first person who gets there generally just gets the payout.
So as someone who's not as invested, right, who maybe doesn't have the same outlook as someone who is mining, proof of stake kind of sounds better, because if we each get the same amount of lottery tickets, we have the same chance essentially. Mm-hmm. And it's going to rotate through no matter what, as opposed to, all right, it's a race to the finish and Danny just happens to have a better computer than I do, and so he gets to the end first. Does that make sense? It seems more. Yeah. I mean, this is very base level. I don't know that that's an exact equivalent, but does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think proof of stake just seems to be better because it incentivizes you to try to own more, because there's a natural yield built into the base cryptocurrency. And then on top of that, people's have a vested interest in making sure the transactions that are being validated are actually true and correct, because they actually own the cryptocurrency themselves and they don't want to compromise or negatively affect the value. So everyone's incentivized to play nice in that sort of system. And on top of that, it just takes a lot less power. So yield is good. I like yield. These proof of stake cryptocurrencies are pretty great.
I feel like Alex wants to pay the opposite side of that coin.
No, I think proof of stake is absolutely the way of the future for crypto. I just don't think that mining in of itself doesn't provide enough value with proof of stake as a viable alternative to justify how much power it's taking in right now. I mean, I'm sure there's pros and cons to both, but as someone who doesn't mine, I mean, I would much rather be invested in a proof of stake coin than one where I'm not making any sort of yield. Because I don't have a powerful enough computer to even begin to start mining. It's just too old. So I mean, I
That's
think
what
it'd
I
be interesting. I know.
But so gas
Might be
fees,
changed.
I